You know, if I could get away with it, then more than half of my content would be about vocoders because it's my most favorite type of vocal plugin or effect plugin, bar none. I love vocoders. And so when Teenage Engineering pushes out a new update for the OP-1 field, which I have right here, with a vocoder in it, I have to check it out. Now, don't worry, I won't make half of my content be about vocoders, but I sure do wish I could. Now, in order to get this new vocoder for your OP-1 field, you have to update the firmware, and I've put all the necessary links you need down in a pinned comment and also in the description, so you can go check that out for yourself. Now, I won't be using my regular microphone for much longer because I am connecting my headset into the OP-1 field. I am also pressing Shift and mic to go in here, select the headset as the input, go back to tape, activate the mic. You should be able to hear me now. So after updating the OP-1 field with the new firmware, we'll be able to find the vocoder inside the synthesizer list. So we're going to activate the synthesizer button here. And then we can select any of the channels. We've got 8. I'm going to use 3, and I think I'm already selected that one. Yeah, well, we're going to press Shift and 3 to get into the list of different synthesizer instruments. And just scroll all the way down with the blue knob here until we get to vocoder and select that. Right, so there we go. Alright, so there are 4 pages inside the vocoder. Now, the first one includes all of the synth controls for the vocoder. Second one is the envelope. Third one is the effects. Fourth one is for modulation. And we're just going to dive into this now.
Vocoder ending. This is a popular 80s pop song, but I'm not going to sing the actual words. Cause I'm not looking to get demonetized by YouTube's algorithms. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. This one sets the character of the file. Going from top blank all the way down. This knob sets the amount of bands in the vocoder. This is the maximum. This is, and this one basically
just blends in the microphone noise so that you can hear the direct sound from the microphone better. Now, what's so sweet about this is that we can now go on and use stuff like the arpeggiator to play the vocoder. I'm going to turn on the arpeggiator, and when we play it, we get an arpeggiated vocoder, which is pretty nice, and I like that you're able to do this. We can switch out the arpeggiator modules, and there are basically 3 modules that I like using for this. So if you hold down Shift when you've got the arpeggiator selected and you just press the arpeggiator, we can select between the different types of modules. Let me just check something here. Nope, that's called the sequencer button, and it contains an arpeggiator. It doesn't matter. So the ones I like using for this are the top 3 ones. Arpeggio, of course, and then endless, which we just used, and finger. 1 finger over here and 1 finger over here, and now we're getting some interesting arpeggiator movements. No, so far we haven't added any effects, but we're going to do that. So we're going to go over here, press 3, and turn the effects on. And right now I'm using the mother reverb, and this reverb is amazing. As you can hear right now, it sounds almost like a chamber. And if we just pull this down a little bit, we're making it darker. This way we're getting the sibilance noises instead, and we can even gate that sound weirdly, and this will all be applied on the vocoder. So yeah, I just like the way that that sounds. It is so good. I love this reverb so much.
This is a popular 80s pop song, but I'm not going to sing the actual words. Cause I'm not looking to get demonetized by YouTube's algorithms.
Okay, so there is this one thing we have not done, and that is we have not added any modulation yet. And I mean, it gets more fun when you start doing that. So to add modulation, we go to the modulation page by pressing 4 and turn this on. And right now it looks like we got the tremolo loaded. Now we can select other types of modulation by pressing Shift and 4, and here we get into the list. Here we got element, MIDI, random, tremolo, value, and velocity. And I especially like the tremolo and value when I do anything with the vocoder. We already tested out the tremolo. I'm just going to select value here. And so with the destination knob here in gray, we can select to send it to the synth, or we can send it to the amplitude envelope, or we can send it to one of the effects controls, and we can select the different controls over here. You do the same thing in the envelope here. You can choose attack or decay, and it just goes on like that. But we're going to send it to something inside the synth. So what I want to do is just modulating the bands inside the vocoder. Okay, so we know what the gray and red knob does. The blue one actually lets us set the speed of the LFO, and I'm going to put it down to 4. And if we tap down, we can select between different waveforms. Now I'm just going to select a sine wave here. Now the diarrhea. Now with the gold colored knob, we can set up the amount of modulation. There's loads you can do with modulation, so I suggest you experiment with that. There's just one more thing to do, and that is to go to the envelope page and just add a little bit more attack here, so we get a softer attack and a little bit more decay. Pull down on the sustain and give it a little bit of release. Activate the reverb here, and a no gate for mommy.
If you subscribe to my channel, I will love you to the end of time.
So the OP-1 fields is connected by a USB-C connection over here over to a USB-A connection to this Uni hub over here. And then that is connected to my iPad Pro. And so when you connect it like that, the iPad will recognize the OP-1 field instantly as a USB connection. And if we look over here, we can see that in the hardware output, it says OP-1 left right. So yeah, it just works. I'm using AUM right now. What you have to think about when you're doing this though is to not create a feedback loop. You do not want to make a channel where you've got the USB input and output in the same channel, which is why I've connected it like this with 2 channels. So the USB in is here from the actual OP-1 field, and anything I want to send into the OP-1 field gets sent through this channel. But the thing is that any app you start will actually go directly into here. You don't actually have to route it through AUM. If we just go from AUM and go into another app I'm using called Robot Talk.
Subscribe to me now. Obey human.
So what I can do now is I can send this audio in here if I switch it over to USB.
Subscribe to me now. Obey human.
Now when it comes to running signals through the vocoder inside the OP-1 field, there are more options. If we go into here where we have our inputs, right now we've got a headset selected, and you've also seen how we can run audio into the OP-1 field when you're connected over USB. But there's one option in here that I really like, and it is the radio, especially when working with ambient music and or generative music. Because when you're working with music like that, you want something more unexpected, less controlled.
Åratal. Kungliga Operan I Stockholm.
Helstatligt aktiebolag bjuder på 60% Opera, 40% jazz. Det var Gustav III som införde
Now, if you're into radio signals, then there is this app I'd really love to recommend to you because it's like having access to lots of expensive radio equipment. And with it, you can access radio streams from all over the globe. Now, it's called WebSDR, and you load it as an AUV3. I must admit, sometimes it takes me hours to find something useful, but sometimes it just clicks. And there was this one time I was working on a video for an app called Octocron, and I managed to tune in a Japanese station.
생명이 지금의 것이니 진 것이고 그리고 내가 죽으면 상관이 없음을 알았습니다. 그때 하나님께서 10원도 받은 적 없고 내가 죽어야 들었습니다.
Yeah, I had to hurry to record that because I didn't know when that station was going to switch out the material. Well, if you like radio and using that with vocoders, you just can't go wrong with it. Now, when working with vocoders, the choice of microphone is kind of important because you want something that highlights the vocal spectrum without making sibilance noises and the higher frequencies too sharp or too harsh. But you still want some body in there, but you don't want it to be fully subby because it just muddies up the vocoder sound. So I did a test with a few headsets because that's what I want to bring with me whenever I go out into the field with my OP-1 field, no pun intended. I want to have it easy, I don't want to bring a studio microphone and a preamplifier and things like that. Just a simple headset with a TRRS connection. So here's several headsets, and I already kind of knew which one of the headsets would perform the best. Because I've done this test before, back when Arturia introduced their vocoder upgrade for the Microfreak. And back then, the headset that won was the Sennheiser headset, because it picks up the voice exactly the way I want it to when I'm working with vocoders. It highlights the vocal range without making the higher frequencies too harsh. It keeps the body intact of the vocals, but without the sub. I just have to keep singing into this mic so that I can show the frequencies and what they look like. Now, one microphone type I would like to warn you about is the Apple EarPods one. It's no good because you have to press that microphone up against your mouth in order to get it to pick it up, your vocals. And another thing I want to tell you to avoid is this gaming headset. It sounds bad no matter what you do. Is this the part I tell them that it doesn't really matter how good these mics are because the headphones, they're awful as monitors? You think I can leave that out? Loading. Recording time. Let's rewind the tape. Alright. That should do it. I think we have something we can work with. I don't know if I made it clear enough yet, but I really do love vocoders so much. And this new update for the OP-1 field is quite amazing. You'll also find more links to... Stop. Oh, wake up alarm. That's gotta be the most negative ASMR in the world. You'll also find more links to some vocoder-based videos here on my channel. So if you're looking for a good vocoder to use on iOS, then I've got a video in where I'm comparing 5 of the best vocoders. And in it, you can clearly hear how really different each and every one of these vocoders really are from one another. Apart from that, there is also a link to the Arturia Microfreak vocoder mic test that I did. And of course, there are some links related to the OP-1 field and the vocoder update and firmware and things like that. Oh, and recently Teenage Engineering posted an article in where you can read up on how I set up the TH6 mixer to be played as a polyphonic synthesizer. Sounds pretty mental, right? Well, it kind of is. Now, before you leave, if you like the content I do here on the channel, and if you want to support my work, why don't you give me a thumbs up? And if you don't like me, you don't like my content, you don't want to give me a thumbs up, then I have a special message for you.
Daddy boo boo. Stick your head in.
If you want to support me in a financial way, then there are links down below that you can use to do that. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine too. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.